making the not so obvious obvious.
This video is part of Shut Up and Shoot, that famous ebook, you know, the one you should be getting now. So here we are, part 3 of processing a time-lapse JPG sequence, and we're going to show how to batch render. But before I go into that, if you remember in segment 2, we were creating all these compositions with different sizes. One thing I wanted to point out was on the film formats, or the 35 millimeter cinescreen, you know, the cinematic formats. We have a little bit of a different setting here. Obviously it's 24p, but I'm just going to show you. I'm right now looking at the 24p 2K film version, and you'll notice that here we are with a large image that we have, and this is the actual frame size of that kind of footage. So if I do the regular old transform fit to comp width, you're going to run into a problem here, because you're going to have this dead space or white space or black space. So what we want to do in film factor or format, we want to go transform and fit to comp height. I just wanted to point that out real quick. And again, you can do adjustments so that you can move this over and you know, frame it the way you like. And it's thinking, and we're talking some processing power here. This is a lot of information, and it gets even crazier when we do the raw version, but that's in another video. So anyway, so we're ready now, and we've got all these different formats. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pieces of footage from one sequence. Pretty cool. So why do we do that? Well, I personally like to give buyers an option, because you never know what kind of thing they're working on. They could be working on a television show, or they could be possibly working on a major motion picture. The object is, if we give the buyers the opportunity to get exactly what they need right away without them having to do a lot of post-processing, they're more apt to buy. So this is one of the reasons that I give many different sizes and flavors of a piece of footage as possible. All right, moving on with that thought, we need to now process or render these puppies out. And there's a long way to do this, and then there's my infamous shortcut way. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab the very first composition, and you want to only render compositions, because those are the only things you can render. And I'm going to say add that to the render queue. And so automatically After Effects opens up the render queue, and it has a bunch of cool information here about how you want to render. And I have a variety of different settings here. And one of the things that you'll see is I have, for example, for tandem stock, because they only accept H.264 QuickTime, I already have a profile created. I also have a Pond 5 progressive photo JPEG, and Pond 5 will also accept H.264. So make sure you check with your agency to see what will they accept, what is the output format that they will accept. So I'm going to just, because I'm going to shoot for Pond 5, I'm going to select progressive photo JPEG. And then I also need to know what output module am I going to use, because that's obviously the QuickTime H.264 30p. But if I'm doing photo JPEG, I should really use a photo JPEG codec. So because these are pretty decent photographs, I can live with an 87% quality. I only use 92% if I'm processing RAW, and I will explain that when we get into the RAW, which is in a whole nother video. But for right now, I'm going to use my 87%, and these are templates that I've created. Oh, and by the way, which we will cover, making a template, it's not that difficult. You just click on here, and then we can create templates, but we'll go over that in a whole nother video. Now the key is, where do I put this to? In other words, when I render, I need to save this somewhere, and I don't want to just randomly save it wherever. So I click on the file name, and as you can see, I've already created a directory called P5 demo, which is for this purpose. I actually have the real P5 directory where I've already rendered a bunch of files, but I'm just going to, for all intents and purposes, create a directory P5 demo, or you can create a new folder and, you know, call it whatever, AE demo, or your stock, or tandem stock, whatever, however you want to name it. The key is to keep this stuff organized as much as possible. It will make your life easier down the road. So there's a new folder. I'm just going to delete that. I don't like all these stray folders. Get rid of that. We're going to put it into the P5 demo. And it already has the file name. Now this file name is directly taken from the composition name. So you saw I took a lot of time to name those compositions correctly. Well, that's because I already knew when we get to the file name, I don't have to retype in some crazy file name over and over again. It's already there for me. So I hit save, and now this first composition is queued and ready to go. So if I hit render, it would render that now, but that's kind of blah, 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 because you don't want to do that over and over and over again. But the reason I only brought one in was because I wanted to set everything up to make it easy for the rest. So now, by shift click and selecting, I can tell all those compositions to be added to the render queue. And now we have all these comps in the render queue. And I'm just going to show the render queue a little bit larger. And you'll see that these are all still highlighted because I just brought them in. So any change I make now automatically gets applied to all of the files. So all the settings are the same now. And I don't need to worry about the file naming because we did that with the comp naming. And no matter what, they are all going to go into the same directory, which is exactly what I want. And now we have a batch of 9 files ready to render. At this point, you simply click render, but before doing so, save your project and save it in a logical place. And I'm just going to call it I don't know, we'll call it VV demo AE time-lapse. And the reason I want to save it is you never know, you could lose power, you could lose, the computer could blow up, whatever reason, but you want to have this project saved so that you can immediately reload it should you have to and not have to do all that work again. So once you click render, these puppies will start rendering, and the last thing you want to do is sit here and watch them do that, because it's like watching a clock, or it's like watching this tutorial that you just watched. I know it's a bit long, but I'd rather give you good quality explanations and make sure you really understand this. So click on render, go have a coffee, go to bed, let it do it overnight, whatever have you. That was it, and that is processing JPEG files or sequences for time-lapse on steroids. Thanks for watching.